A calm and serene atmosphere prevails everywhere. Let us get attuned to this ebb. Welcome once again to News Analysis. News Analysis, a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with the main points in a nutshell. GOP opposition dims hope for arms treaty with Russia in the US. Guantanamo detainee acquitted on most counts in 98 bombings. China censors misfire in abuse of power case. Ireland seeks aid from international lenders. 2G scam, Attorney General to represent Prime Minister in the Supreme Court. Tata Sons chairman Ratan Tata discloses bribery demands by central ministers. And now the news in detail. GOP opposition dims hope for arms treaty with Russia. President Obama's hopes of ratifying a new arms control treaty with Russia by the end of the year appeared to come undone on Tuesday as the chief Senate Republican negotiator moved to block a vote on the pact, one of the White House's top foreign policy goals in the lame duck session of Congress. The announcement by the Senator John Kill of Arizona, the Republican point man on the issue, blindsided and angered the White House, which vowed to keep pressing for approval of the so-called New START treaty. But the White House strategy had hinged entirely on winning over Mr. Kill, and Democrats, who began scrambling for a backup plan, said they considered the chances of success slim. Winning approval of the treaty will only become harder for the White House next year, when Democrats will have 6 fewer seats in the Senate, forcing the administration to rely on additional Republican votes to reach the 67 needed for ratification. Detainee acquitted on most counts in 98 bombings. The first former Guantanamo detainee to be tried in civilian court was acquitted on Wednesday of all but one of more than 280 charges of conspiracy and murder in 1998 terrorist bombings of the United States embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The case has been seen as a test of President Obama's goal of trying detainees in federal court whenever feasible, and the result seems certain to fuel debate over whether civilian courts are appropriate for trying terrorists. The defendant Ahmad Khalfan Kailani, 36, was convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to destroy government buildings and property. He was acquitted of 4 counts of conspiracy, including conspiring to kill Americans and to use weapons of mass destruction. Because of the unusual circumstances, Mr. Kailani's case, after he was captured in Pakistan in 2004, he was held for nearly 5 years in so-called black site run by the Central Intelligence Agency and at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The prosecution faced significant legal hurdles, even getting his case to trial. On the eve of Mr. Kailani's trial last month, the government lost a key ruling that may have seriously damaged its chances of winning convictions. In the ruling, the Judge Louis A. Kaplan of the Federal District Court in Manhattan barred prosecutors from using an important witness against Mr. Kailani because the government had learned about the man through Mr. Kailani's interrogation while he was in CIA custody, where his lawyers say he was tortured. China censors misfire in abuse of power case. One night in late October, a college student named Zheng Xiaofeng was in line skating with a friend on the grounds of Hebei University in central China. They were gliding past the campus grocery when a Volkswagen sedan raced down a narrow lane and struck them head-on. The impact sent Ms. Shen flying and broke the other woman's leg. The 22-year-old driver, who was intoxicated, tried to speed away. Security guards intercepted him, but he was undeterred, he warned them, "My father's Lee gang." The two girls were motionless. One passerby that night, a student who identified himself only by his surname, Joanne, said this week, "There was a small pool of blood. The next day, Miss Shen was dead." Shen Xiaofeng was a poor farm girl. The man accused of killing her, Li Qiming, is the son of Li Gang, the deputy police chief in the Beiji district of Baoding. The tale of her death is precisely the sort of gripping social drama. A commoner grievously wronged, a privileged transgressor pulling strings to escape punishment, that sets off alarm bells in the offices of Communist Party censors. And in fact, party propaganda officials moved swiftly after the accident to ensure that the story never gained traction. Irish officials acknowledged need for aid. Irish officials acknowledged for the first time on Thursday that Ireland was seeking aid from international lenders. Ireland had been reluctant to accept any bailout that came with strings attached. But on Thursday, Finance Minister Brian Lenihan told the Irish Parliament that it would be a very desirable outcome if a contingency capital fund could be established with the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the European Central Bank. Patrick Honohan, the governor of the Central Bank of Ireland, said in an interview on the Irish state broadcaster RTE that we are talking about a very substantial loan for sure, and that such a rescue would be in tens of billions of euros. As Ireland nears bailout, Portugal waits in wings. As Dublin moves begrudgingly towards accepting a European Union bailout, attention is rapidly shifting to Portugal, the country perceived to be as weak in a link in the Eurozone as Ireland, though for different reasons. While Portugal's leaders like Ireland's insist that they have enough money for now and are making brave, necessary cuts to government spending, in fact the Portuguese government is both divided and stalemated. It has shaken the markets by letting spending rise over the last 4 months, well beyond its stated promises, and it has not done enough structural reform to foster strong economic growth. The difference from Ireland is that we are in the middle of a financial crisis, but also a political crisis, said Ricardo Costa, deputy editor of the Weekly Expresso. Prime Minister Joe Socrates of a socialist lost his majority in the elections of September 2009 and has had to negotiate everything with an ambitious center-right opposition, including the long-drawn-out budget. Chinese women imprisoned for a Twitter message. A Chinese woman was sentenced to 1 year in labor camp on Wednesday after she forwarded a satirical microblog message that urged recipients to attack the Japanese pavilion at the Shanghai World Expo, human rights groups said Thursday. The woman, Zhang Xiaoping, 46, was accused of disturbing social order for resending a Twitter message from her fiancé that mocked young nationalists who held anti-Japanese rallies in several cities last month. The original message sarcastically goaded protesters to go beyond the smashing of Japanese products and express their fury at the heavily policed expo site. Ms. Chang added the words, "Charge angry youth." Ms. Chang was seized last month in the southern city of Wuxi on the same day as her fiancé Hua Xuanxin. Mr. Hua, who was released 5 days later, told reporters the two had planned to marry on the day of their detention. Before we close this bulletin of news analysis, let's have a recap of the headlines once again. GOP opposition dims hope for arms treaty with Russia in the US. Guantanamo detainee acquitted on most counts in 98 bombings. China censors misfire in abuse of power case. Ireland seeks aid from international lenders. 2G scam, Attorney General to represent Prime Minister in the Supreme Court. Tata Sons chairman Ratan Tata discloses bribery demands by central ministers. And there we end today's bulletin of news analysis. Be with us in the coming weeks too. Thank you.